Hey guys, welcome to another video, Purple Political Talk here. Today is Thursday, July 8th, 2021, and today we're going to be discussing the 2024 presidential election and taking a look at a very interesting scenario that, I think is, again, unlikely. I've been doing a lot of these more outlandish scenarios this week. And it's a three-way scenario. So, I've seen a lot of people that have been wanting me to do this and doing a scenario where there would certainly be vote splitting, where the results of the election are not going to be guaranteed. So that's what we're going to be taking a look at today. But before we do that, I want to remind you guys to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications to be up to date with our latest content. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's get started with the videos. So this is what we're going to be discussing in this election scenario. We're going to be discussing a three-way race between former governor and incumbent senator from the state of Utah, Mitt Romney, and the Republicans, Joe Biden, incumbent Democratic president, on the Democrat side, and then we're going to have Donald Trump come in and run as a quote-unquote independent with the Patriot Party. So, this scenario is interesting because of the vote splitting. So I'm going to discuss the safe states for the Democrats first, because that's going to be the easiest part of this prediction. So, all the states that the Democrats would traditionally win, or, would borderline usually win, I would say you could put states like Virginia in there as well. You would see those states probably end up still voting for the Democrats, and by those big margins. You would see a lot of vote splitting, especially between Donald Trump and Mitt Romney when it comes to one Republican vote you have the more establishment side of the party, which Mitt Romney will likely take a lot of those votes with him. But then you also have the more Trumpy part of the party that we know will always end up being loyal to him and end up going to vote and for him. So that will cause in certain states that are borderline, I would say Virginia, New Mexico, Colorado, those seats are going to go by safe margins. Remember, safe margins are more than 50% for one candidate or another. And for the Republicans, or the Patriot Party in this case, for the more conservative voices in this election, the vote splitting will cause them not being able to get any safe states. So that's something that I think is very interesting to take a look at with vote splitting. And this is why the political parties are just so scared of any scenario that shows any possibility of a vote splitting scenario, because, it's been tried before where they tried running different candidates from the same party in different parts of the country, and it miserably failed. So yeah, we're going to end up seeing that. Just with the safe states, and I'm forgetting some states, or with the basic safe states, we start by seeing, the Democrats already at 211, and there's more states that still will go by the safe margin that we haven't discussed for the Democrats. So the next step is going to be those states that have been super close, but then also have, those shifts. And I think that pretty much means the Midwest completely goes for someone like Joe Biden in this scenario, and then Arizona as well. These are states that are very narrow, and then the type of of voters that are in this region for the Republicans, they really are going to end up splitting, because you do have your establishment, you do have your populist bases, especially in the Midwest. So I think that's one of the things that's really going to end up benefiting Joe Biden in this scenario, that Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, they're close states. And even if it was a 50-50 race, let's suppose that the Republicans split 30-20 in this case, into the 30 for Trump and 20 for Romney, you're still winning by over 20 points for Joe Biden. So I think that's something that's going to end up, granting him a very big advantage when it comes to this election. The rest of these states, however, these are the more Republican states out of the bat. And I forgot New Hampshire for some reason. The rest of these states are more, we're going to be more interesting to see who would win based on what regions of the country these candidates will do well in. So let's start off with the final safe states map for Joe Biden. Just with the safe states, he starts off with 286. A lot more of these states could be called safe, but it's really up to who you ask. So let's go on and discuss likely states for any of the candidates, but really it's mostly Joe Biden. I mean, for Joe Biden, his likely states are going to be states that, are still swing states, but could probably end up, I think shifting a little bit more towards one side. So I think mostly what we're going to end up seeing is, Texas, Georgia, Florida, North Carolina. We're going to see Biden win there by, likely margins, probably around 15 to 10 to 15%. In these states, I think the Republicans still do have support in some ways. And in the South especially, the establishment Republican, divide isn't as big as it could be up north. Now, Georgia is a little bit more of a borderline for Biden because of the vote splitting there, but Florida, Texas, and North Carolina, they're still going to go, of course, more for Biden. But when I say borderline, I'm talking about the margin. I think that the big thing here is going to be that, in a lot of these states, even if it's actually tight, conservatively, and because for conservative to the liberal vote, you're going to end up seeing that in some of these states, Donald Trump will just do better. I think somewhere like Florida, Donald Trump would take Mitt Romney for a walk in the park. I mean, it's going to end up being like probably 40 to 50 Biden winning, or not even that. I mean, they're going to have more votes. It's just that Biden has, the biggest of the minorities, the plurality of the votes, and that's going to give him the race in Florida. Similarly in North Carolina and similarly in Texas. Now, I think that we can make the same argument for places like Iowa and Ohio. These are states that, they have voted somewhat more conservatively over the years. Vote splitting might be a thing here, though. I think that while states like Florida might end up voting more for or less for Biden compared to other states, somewhere like Ohio and Iowa, they might end up voting in the likely margin more, but by probably around like 7 to 15%. The margins are going to start coming down for Biden as we go here. And again, I cannot stress this enough. This is the only election scenario where I see Joe Biden getting 411 electoral votes. I think the possibility of Biden gaining anything even more than 320 electoral votes is far-fetched anytime in the future. So, this is one of the things that really might be a positive thing for the Democratic Party if they want to expand their margins electorally. Going on to the rest of these states and discussing where they would fall, it's going to become a thing where states that were closely trending, I think states like South Carolina and Alaska, Kansas. I would go as far as saying states like Missouri as well. These are states that, over the years have been shifting a little bit more towards to the Democrats, or they've actually had a lot of Democratic presidents. I mean, I cannot stress enough the presence in Missouri that has been there, that Democrats have had a lot of control there. In Kansas, we saw a very strong run by a Democrat in the Senate in 2020. We saw a very strong run for governorship. Even with the vote splitting, I think that then these are Republican states. You're probably going to end up seeing Biden win by 5. I think that at the end of the day, when the vote starts splitting, it's going to probably end up being a little bit more towards Biden, towards Trump, in favor. So let's just suppose. Kansas was 55-45 in a regular election, 10% margin. Usually it's even more than that. Let's just say that out of that 55%, let's just say that 10% goes to Romney. Biden wins here because you have 15%. It would be about a 5-point victory because you would leave Trump with 40 and Biden would have 45. This is what's going to be interesting about this matchup. There's other matchups when you start getting into the four-way races where you have two conservatives and two Republicans, where the actual candidates actually do matter. What each candidate's appeal and different appeals are will matter in that case, because it has some weight because there's more options. But once you start splitting and consolidating one group of the vote together and everyone else, splitting apart, it's going to be quite difficult. And I think all these areas in the South, in a scenario like this, you could see splitting up the vote and going to Biden. But I'll get into which ones I think will happen. Now, with this said, I think we are getting into the states that we could see vote splitting be somewhat influential. But for example, in Utah, I think that Utah Mitt Romney could win there by a lean margin. The Mormon vote's going to be for them, but there's a big part of the liberal vote there that would go for Biden, and then there's still going to be Trump Republicans in the party. So I think that truly Utah, you're going to end up seeing Mitt Romney win there regardless. As for Trump, I think he's going to do well in Wyoming. That's going to be one of the states he could probably end up winning. And I would say Idaho as well. Even after vote splitting, even after everything, these states vote 30% plus for the Republicans every time around. With the vote splitting, and there's some establishment folks here. I think that we could see Trump winning those by around 3 or 5%. Going to everywhere else in the country, it's going to be a lot more closer. I think that we're going to end up seeing a couple of races that truly are just going to end up falling more into the more closer column. Let's start talking about the South. I think this is a region of the country that might end up being interesting to see. So I think in the South, there's certain states that Joe Biden's going to do very well in, comparatively. And with the tilt margins, I think that he's going to be able to win. But he's in like Louisiana and Arkansas. Tennessee is vastly growing more Democratic. Those areas of the country are vastly more Democratic than they were, 8 years ago. When you take a look at how these areas of the country have shifted, you have to remember these areas were solidly Democrat before the Democratic Party became more liberal. And, even with everything said, these areas have a lot of African-American vote. And after vote splitting in the South, which you're going to see a lot of Trumpism, but you're also going to end up seeing a lot of people, go out for Mitt Romney. It's probably going to end up tilting very close to Biden. The real math of this is you can afford losing some states, right? Or you can, if you're Trump or Mitt Romney for that matter as well, you can afford losing as many votes or splitting as many votes as your margin is, because that's how much you need to win. So you see in the South, I really see Biden end up taking that because the split in the South might be a little bit bigger than in other parts of the country. Now, as far as some of these other states go, I think that the only region where the Republicans are going to do well in, in this case, the Patriot Party as well, is this kind of upper Midwest region of the country that, it doesn't really have a name, but it's sort of also the Pacific Northwest. It's between the Midwest and the Pacific Northwest. That's where I think they're going to do great. I think they're going to do very well in Montana, and I think all these seats would probably end up narrowly voting for Trump in tilt margins. I don't see the Democrats losing in Nebraska though. I think they could win Nebraska narrowly. These two districts that are more conservative, I think actually surprisingly these two districts could probably end up voting for Romney. Romney would probably appeal very good to Nebraska voters, more so than Trump. Trump could probably appeal to them, but not to the same extent that someone like Romney could. Going on to the last states we have left, we have the states of Indiana, Kentucky, and West Virginia. West Virginia is probably going to end up going to Trump. West Virginia is one of the most conservative states in the country. They voted for Trump by a very big amount. So I think regardless, I think he's going to end up winning here narrowly because, again, establishment Republicans exist in the state. Going on to Indiana and Kentucky, these states are a little bit hard. I'm going to say that because of vote splitting and maybe people's help in the state, Kentucky can narrowly go to Biden, but I think Indiana as well. You see, Biden completely blows out this election. And I think the vote splitting could become more technical, but I think generally the South is going to be a very close region just based on, the vote splitting. But Biden's going to do great up in the Northwest. So this is my prediction for the for this very interesting scenario. I think that this is going to be a very interesting to take a look at, because while it might not really be the biggest possibility, perhaps, it is something that could certainly happen in the future. So this is my final prediction: 5-11 for Joe Biden, 21 for Donald Trump, and 6 for Mitt Romney. So yeah, tell me what you guys think down in the comments. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a huge thumbs up, like, subscribe, turn on post notifications to be up to date with our latest content. And also, channel memberships are now open. And if you want to become a Purple Political Talk channel member, you can press the join tab next to the subscribe button if you're on a desktop, and you could click the link in the description if you're on a phone. Thank you guys so much for watching, and goodbye.